All right. Well, we are at 2 p.m., so I'm going to go ahead and kick us off and get started. For those of you that are here, good afternoon. At this time, I'll call to order the September 18th regular board meeting of the North County Transit District. Before we begin, members of the public who may be viewing the meeting on the district's YouTube page, please note that in order to make a public comment during the meeting, you must connect to the meeting using the Zoom link provided on the agenda. In addition, you must also register by sending an email containing your name or phone number and the agenda item on which you wish to speak to clerk@nctd.org. Suhail Rodriguez, clerk of the board, will take a verbal roll call for attendance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Board Chair Bob Patel,
Present.
Vice Chair Sinella,
Here.
Board Alternate Spielek,
Here.
Board Member O'Hara,
Here.
Board Member Garcia,
Present.
Board Member Joyce,
Present.
Board Member Desmond, Board Member Edson, Board Member Contreras,
Present.
Board Member Lee. This completes a roll call with Board Members Desmond, Edson, and Lee absent.
All right, thank you. Board Member Garcia, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, Suhail will now provide a safety brief and review evacuation procedures.
Thank you. In case of an emergency, I will dial 911. In case of an evacuation, please take the stairs. Do not use the elevator. Once clear to the building, please do not re-enter unless cleared to do so by emergency personnel. There are fire extinguishers and first aid kits on each floor of this building. There is a portable defibrillator on the first floor, and we have staff on hand trained on CPR procedures if needed. This concludes my safety brief.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask if there are any changes to the agenda.
No, Madam Chair.
Great. And we'll move on to our public comments. Do we have any general public comments today?
Yes, we do have 2 in-person public comments today. I will call them when prompted. We may have 2 additional telephonic comments that may come in when confirmed. At this time, I will call John Mosher to the podium. Ms. Mosher, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, board. I'm John Mosier from San Marcos with the San Marcos Mobile Home Residents Association. I've come here before. Part of it was about transportation and the NCD Plus program that we had. And I want to thank you guys for having San Marcos, being lucky enough to have it first last year. I know Vista has it now, been very successful. We've been very lucky to actually expand our services in our city, and we've been looking at crossover times. We're lucky Nick came out and gave us a presentation at our traffic commission meeting last month to let us know where we stood. And since I'm trying to move seniors from mobile home parks to the senior center for specific meetings, or like what Deputy Mayor Mike Sinella did for us, put in the skin with Jordan Marks at the county assessor at the Civic Center, I'm having problems getting people to the meetings for those that either don't drive anymore, but they do want to come. So while I was looking at that and we're listening to the presentation, it came out that we have 2 shuttles in the morning, 2 in the afternoon. At one point in the day, we have a crossover, so we have 4 of them. And we're looking at what it would take to actually have a 3rd bus in that system. And right now it comes down to funding. And that's one of the reasons I'm here, is trying to look at options for funding and what we can do to help to get the word out. I do have some residents that are trying to get to Kaiser and Vista. And I was thinking, if I've got Kaiser and Vista and I got Vista people that need to get to the San Marcos Kaiser, there might be a way to have a shuttle going back and forth, and also go to Kaiser and ask them to become a sponsor or help us gather those funds. The other thing I want to say is, Eric, I want to thank you for what you've done in your city, and the rent ordinance and working with the CAP, with your efforts is something I see necessary for us seniors to protect what we have and keep our affordable housing for years to come. And Joe, I know in Escondido, I think they said that there is a cap in place, so I'll be reaching out to you to discuss that later on. So it's been a while, but anyway, good to see you all.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Miss S.L. Henderson. You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. Yes. My name is Shirlene Loretta Henderson, best known as S.L. Henderson. I am here on the behalf of suffering students with laws for the freedom of who's who. Personal choice. I've lived in the 60s and here in San Diego County since 1987, incorporated who's most likely to succeed. Just who do you serve? Service. 3 years, and this is another school year, and nothing has changed in North County schools in certain areas like Vista and San Marcos. Well, here in Oceanside, too, the 303 need a 603. Are seeing bias from the same health and safety concerns in other parts of this country, USA. You have seen in Escondido 651, 652, and in Oceanside, the 623. I occasionally have been riding in the area bus over 6 years now and complain now 3 times and about the safety laws of overcrowded buses and the health and issues that has not even the parents concerned. Told once they were the homeless, that was the answer they needed to hear. I started looking all the groups of 651 and 652 and 63, 623 and said, who is this Walker, the chieftain of pedophiles and perverts? Don't serve as cities with transportation rules or regulations. Every bus route in this area are operated like the suburbans. Pedestrians, beware. And the stops show you working against yourself. A bus that runs once an hour can't connect with one that runs every 20 or 30 minutes. A bus that passed the Sprinter station can't pull in the Sprinter station and have a good day. I got the core of it.
Thank you. We have no further speakers on general public comment.
Okay, thank you. At this time, public registration to provide general public comment will end. Before we proceed, I have a couple of quick protocol items to share. I will ask board members to hold your comments and questions until after each agenda item has been presented. When the time comes for board member questions or comments, please raise your hand and wait until you are called upon to speak. And then please turn on and speak into your microphone when it is your turn to speak. This will ensure that your comments are heard for those listening to the meeting online. And lastly, when it is time to vote, Suhail will call a verbal vote. So we are going to be moving on to presentations. And before we do that, I just want to make sure you wanted to do that after this item. Okay, perfect. The first item on the agenda is a presentation regarding the state's zero-emission rail fleet. NCTD will be involved in support of the testing and piloting of hydrogen fuel cell vehicles to be used in the San Diego subdivision. Lillian Doherty, our Director of Planning and Development, and Kyle, is it Gradinger? Okay, perfect. Chief at Caltrans Division of Rail and Mass Transportation will present this item. Lillian and Kyle, I will pass it off to you.
Thank you, Chair. Before turning the presentation over to Kyle, I'd like to take a moment to revisit the complementary plan that NCTD has taken with respect to our own rail fleet that makes this opportunity to support Caltrans one that will allow our team to gain valuable knowledge and experience. In 2023, around the same time that our zero emission bus pilot initiative had already taken place, this board approved a contract for a zero emission rail initiative that allowed our team to evaluate a number of technologies, ultimately determining that hydrogen is the propulsion technology that best suits our goals and our objectives, as well as our operational requirements, both current and into the future. The team is currently evaluating the requirements we need evaluating the requirements we need to provide the infrastructure.
Well, I think we're going to take just a 2-minute recess to figure that out. So just, yeah, we'll just, yeah. So I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and take 2 minutes and we'll figure that out and we'll be right back. Thank you.
Do I start again?
All right. Well, thank you for your patience. We had a few technical difficulties, and we want to assure there was a public speaker. So we want to assure that public speaker that was calling in that once we are able to, at the end, that we usually ask for public speakers at that time, we will be calling you to ensure that we can hear your public comment. And again, thank you for everyone's understanding and flexibility. And with that, I'll pass it back over to you all for the presentation.
Currently, the Zero Emission Rail team is evaluating the improvements necessary to support a hydrogen fleet, as well as developing the performance requirements that a rail fleet powered by hydrogen would be required to have. Combined with this, our grants team has a robust funding grant strategy that they will be utilizing to fund both the initiatives for the infrastructure improvements as well as the acquisition of the rail fleet in the coming years. Today, Caltrans is here with us to tell us more about the deployment of the first fleet of 10 hydrogen-powered multiple unit vehicles that they have secured. The plan for this fleet is to operate it on the Lausanne corridor, which makes it an ideal opportunity for NCTD to partner with them on the training and the certification of these trains, and to be part of a statewide initiative to transition to a zero-emission fleet. The next step for both of our teams is to develop a memorandum of understanding that will outline the guidelines for the working relationship that we will have. I'll turn it over to Kyle to tell us more.
Thank you, Elaine. Good morning, good afternoon, sorry, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. My name is Kyle Gradinger. I'm the Division Chief for Rail at Caltrans. So I want to describe an exciting project that we have going on at Caltrans, and we're looking forward to the opportunity to work with you all at NCTD to deploy some of the most advanced trains in North America. So at Caltrans, we are procuring 10 zero-emission multiple unit train sets. These train sets are going to be some of the most modern in North America. They're going to significantly reduce emissions and support the state's efforts to become an innovator in zero-emission mobility. The procurement is currently progressing as planned, and we are in the final design review phase of the project and expect delivery of the initial train sets in 2027 or 2028. Several of those train sets will be coming around the same time. One will be going to the test facility in Pueblo, Colorado to be put through its paces, while the others then are shipped to California to begin corridor testing. So now that we are past those development milestones, we need to shift our focus to the infrastructure that's required to support these FLIRT train sets in operation. So I'll give a quick overview of procurement and the vehicles. So as I mentioned, we are ordering 10 of these train sets, and we still have the ability to exercise an additional 19 options from the manufacturer Stadler. It's a Swiss company which has built thousands of trains around the world and also has a manufacturing facility in Salt Lake City where the current Caltrain, KISS zero emission, I'm sorry, electric multiple unit trains are being produced. Our train will be a hydrogen fuel cell and battery hybrid train. I like to compare that to a Toyota Prius, only instead of a gas engine, we'll have a fuel cell producing the energy, and then batteries coupled to that for propulsion, but then also to be able to collect regenerative braking energy and improve the efficiency of the vehicle. The trains are 4-car sets with a power pack in the middle, which is where the propulsion and hydrogen fuel cell parts are stored. There are 2 cars on either side of that power pack. And so a 4-car train set will have the capacity of over 200 seats. And we have the ability to couple 2 train sets together into essentially an 8-car train with over 400 seats per train. The boarding height is 24 inches. We're working at Caltrans actually with NCTD and other state partners on a working group to work on developing a standard boarding platform train interface that hopefully in California, it's a problem we've had for over a century in North America with different vehicle heights and different platform heights and different platform offsets. We are hopeful that this is the height where we can begin to work on developing a statewide level boarding platform train interface over time. That will take decades to implement, but this vehicle we think is a good starting point to set a new standard for boarding. We'll also be deploying an automatic gap filler, which will extend from the train to near the edge of the platform, allowing unassisted level boarding for passengers with mobility devices. On board, we will have vending options for beverages and snacks, and bike storage, approximately room for 14 bikes in each of these individual 4-car trains, so 28 bikes on a 2 train set train. In terms of accessibility, there will be 2 accessible toilet rooms or accessible restrooms in the train set, 1 on either side of the power pack. We will have access for those passengers to the vending area, and there are 4 wheelchair spaces and a transfer seat in each train set. The transfer seat will allow passengers using a mobility device to transfer to a more comfortable seat for longer journeys. So we've been evaluating corridors around the state. The purpose of this train set procurement came out of a 2021 general fund line item for zero emission intercity rail and bus procurements. And so we've been looking at opportunities to deploy these trains and test their feasibility around the state. Now that we are getting closer to the actual delivery of the vehicles, we have gone back through our corridor feasibility analyses and begun to look at opportunities to deploy these in testing and then into initial revenue service around the state, looking at things like the fueling logistics, supply chain for maintenance and spare parts, and the capacity to actually operate these trains in an existing service corridor. We've looked at infrastructure readiness, looking at the availability of things like maintenance facilities and track capacity. And we've looked at organizational factors, including things such as the ability for an agency or a partner with us to provide track access for testing and to test the commercial viability of these products. So when we look at those things, particularly the infrastructure readiness and the organizational readiness, and then we've looked at service patterns around the state on the intercity rail side, we've identified that the south end of the low sand corridor demonstrates an optimal balance of implementation feasibility, operational readiness, and strategic benefits. So we've had conversations with the NCTD staff, very, very positive conversations, and we were excited to hear that they were interested also in hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. And so for a lot of reasons, we think we found a great partner to begin the testing and initial service of these train sets here in Southern California. To step back for a moment, the vehicle that we all have heard about in San Bernardino, the ZEMU, being run on the Aero service, that is a predecessor vehicle. It's very similar, not the same, but very similar to the vehicle that we are purchasing. And that went into successful revenue service last weekend. And we have learned a lot from that process, working with the FRA, working with the manufacturer, working with Wabtec and the component manufacturers to get to the point where that train is now a successful revenue deployment. And so we are going to take a lot of lessons learned there and move into the process of working with our partners here in Southern California to make sure that our vehicle also successfully goes through the process of certification and testing. So we are hoping that the FLIRT deployment in Southern California could follow a phased approach, beginning with testing and perhaps some opportunities to elevate the visibility of this train set in time for the 2028 Olympics. Probably not in revenue service, but certainly an opportunity for the general public to view the trains and see what the potential future viability looks like. And then we'll continue to move on into revenue service planning. So we want to begin the testing process in the 2027-2028 timeframe here in San Diego County on the NCT San Diego subdivision. And that will be a process that can take much longer than a year just to get through the corridor testing. And by the time we get to the summer of 2028, we should have 4 train sets available for testing. And whether or not they're available for revenue service, again, as I mentioned, it would be great to be able to put on a static display and begin to use that opportunity to educate the public, not only locally, but globally on the highlights of these new train sets. And then as we begin to pass through these stage gates, testing, and then looking into how we can begin to integrate them into service on the broader corridor, we'll be working with NCTD and, I neglected to mention, with our other critical partners in this corridor, the LoSAN agency, the Surfliner, and Amtrak, to begin to look at how we introduce these trains into revenue service. Our intention is to run these trains on the Surfliner. We've identified a few slots that exist in today's schedule where these train sets would be a good fit, sort of a low-risk midday trains for initial service, and then ultimately bringing these trains into service will allow the state to expand its fleet and redistribute trains across the rest of the statewide network to support other corridors like the San Joaquins and the Capital Corridor in the north, and also enable the Surfliner to grow its service as ridership rebounds from the pandemic. So we'll work with you all. We'd love to work with you all and develop an MOU so that we can continue to investigate the opportunities here. And we're just thrilled at Caltrans that NCTD has expressed interest because of your pursuit of a similar vehicle type. We think there's a lot of opportunities and synergies here to work together to successfully deploy this exciting new equipment in Southern California. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. And I'll look to see if any of my colleagues have any questions or comments at this time. Board Member Contreras?
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. I know this is something, Sean, that you've been talking about for a long time, publicly, been telling the board. Thank you for, really bringing this together. I do just have some general questions. We do have the hydrogen fuel cell, buses. But what we saw was that there was, I think, like an over 160% increase in the fuel costs. So can someone break down what we're looking at for potential fuel costs with this set of trains?
Yeah, I would say that's definitely something that we don't have an exact number on yet, that the hydrogen cost continues to fluctuate. The best sort of comparative I can give you is on the bus side. When we looked to put in the fueling station here for our bus operations, it was supposed to get to a place where it was somewhere between $4 and $5 a kilogram in liquid form. Currently, that's somewhere in the $12 to $15 range right now, and in gas form, it's closer to $70, $75. I think part of the issue that exists in California is scalability, and that really has to go back on the state a little bit. The state really opened the doors for what they wanted to see from a hydrogen standpoint, and I think there has been great interest by our friends at Caltrans and CalSTA, and I think the transit community. I think when you get to the energy side of it, there has been less of an investment in trying to scale sourced hydrogen within the state. I think we have a couple, what we would consider large-scale facilities that pull in that hydrogen and sort of refine it. The state's requirement, for the most part, is that it's green. That creates its own set of complications when we have, natural gas lines that we could probably farm and electrolyze from. So there's a lot of different things I think need to happen at the state level to make that happen. It will increase our fuel cost if it doesn't stabilize itself. I will say the risk that we run in an electric scenario is the same if we went with a third rail option or if we try to do overhead catenary. Our friends to the south of us have experienced some increases in electric cost over the years. And there's some inherent danger with overhead catenary as well, especially along the Sprinter line where we have potential fire hazard dangers. So I think when we sort of weighed all those options between potential fuel availability, aesthetics along the line, what really folks might want from a long-term Sprinter outcome, the hydrogen piece was kind of the way to go. My thought is that by the time we get to a place in 2030 where we're really putting all that together, that there should be more hydrogen available. We're banking on that. That's part of the infrastructure throughput of this project, at least, is to even look at our own area and should we have our own hydrogen facility in North County. So that's all part of this entire project, and the state's been very helpful to point us in the right direction and try to help us out with a lot of those things.
Yes, please.
If I could add to that, through the chair. So we'll be covering the cost of the operations at the state because this would be in Surfliner service. But I appreciate the conversation about NCTD's potential use of hydrogen. But at the state level, we've been having several conversations with other state agencies, including the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. And they've introduced us to some of the potential hydrogen manufacturers who are looking to do purely green solar photovoltaic production. And there's also a new Joint Powers Authority created by the city of Lancaster to help sort of amalgamate the demand for green hydrogen in California and to connect the producers to the off-takers. And so I think that there's, as Mr. Donaghy said, I think there's a lot of potential in California still to produce green hydrogen and scale that up quickly. And the indications I'm getting from conversations with state partners is that the commitment is still there and the technical feasibility is coming.
Fantastic. I appreciate, I was actually going to ask that, when, I'm assuming an MOU is going to be a separate discussion that's going to come to the board. So, yeah, I just wanted to ask the state, can you foot the bill for this fuel while we're testing it?
So that will happen.
Yeah, so thank you. I appreciate you chiming because that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, I will say on the long term, we're pretty fortunate that along the 78 corridor, we have cities that are interested in transitioning over to hydrogen fuel sets for the city vehicles, and even I think EDCO had a small conversation about it at one point. And so we're having a conversation about what that looks like on the east end of the corridor to combine resources between a few cities that are interested in some private businesses that want to move into hydrogen technology as well. So a lot of good leverage there. I think by the time we get to that point, we'll be in a much better place to sort of really hone down what that fuel cost is going to.
Okay, great. Great. And just to stay on the Surfliner, because I do have something I want to say about the Sprinter line. But you said there's opportunities right now in the schedule for some testing. Would that be like between noon and 3 p.m.? Is that, or do you have like a certain time? Just curious.
Things we need to hammer out in the MOU process, but I think one of the things that we really appreciate from NCTD is that, as the owner of your infrastructure and the dispatcher, you have the ability to create the capacity. Traditionally, a lot of the early vehicle testing will take place in off hours, presumably overnight hours, but I don't want to speak for the board.
Right. Okay, fantastic. No, that's great. I was just curious where the opportunities in the schedule are now, because I know we do have, unfortunately, too many gaps in our service when it comes to the coaster, especially if you're all the way in San Diego trying to come back, or if you're here trying to get over there. It's really difficult. So we're always looking to expand frequency and rider capacity in that way. So that's great. I love that those conversations are happening. And now I just want to move over quickly to the Sprinter line. So I know that we're just focusing right now on Losan, but I'm really interested having this on the Sprinter side because we have a lot of mechanical issues with the Sprinter right now. It is constantly, there's something going on with it. And I just think that there's a lot of potential, when we look at our infrastructure, if we're able to double track more, do more grade separation, we could have still our freight going through, and we can have late night Sprinter, capacity for passengers, which would be fantastic. Because if we figure out the Losan corridor, it's still really hard for people. I'm in Vista, and it's hard for us to go inland or even to go to Front Wave, in Oceanside and whatnot. So, so I'm really excited about this. I really think that this is an amazing conversation, discussion, and partnership that will come out of this. So thank you so much for all the work. And that's all I have to say. But I will be looking on that MOU to make sure that there's a line there for our fuel costs, because I'm really concerned about the fuel costs on the hydrogen side. I do think that it will come down at some point. Thanks.
Thank you, board member. And before I keep going down the line, I do need to check in to ask if we have any public comment.
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, great. So at this time, we will end registration for public comment, and then I'll continue to move down the line. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Board member Joyce?
Yeah, just briefly weigh in. Thank you so much. That was really interesting. The flirt.
It is an acronym. I will say
Right,
that.
right, that.
It stands for Fast, Light, Innovative Regional Train. So when I worked we bought the first ever set of flirts that were built in the United States in Fort Worth. And so I had to burn that into my head every time I gave a presentation.
Yeah. Somebody get real frisky with their acronyms. That's cool. It was a great presentation. I appreciate it. Also very interested in the Sprinter line. And I just recognize when we're talking about these fuel shifts and changes from historical fuels to what we're trying to look into the future to use, I just want to recognize like our ability and a need to advocate strongly to the state to commit to this, not in just name, but in backing the systems that support these things. So I'm happy to help however I can.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm not seeing anyone raise their hand. Thank you so much for the presentation. Want to just echo those sentiments. Looking forward to seeing this come before us as an MOU, and thank you for letting us know that we're going to be hopefully one of those people piloting this. So thank you. All right, we'll move on. All right, so the next item is the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes for the regular board meeting?
Contreras moves. Oh, you know what? It's fine. I'll leave it to someone else.
No, it's fine. You've
Move to
moved it
approve
and you've
or
seconded.
second,
I will
whichever
say
we're
that I
Great.
wasn't actually here, and I never miss a meeting, but I was never here. But the minutes
think
look
it's-
fine to me.
I think
but-
it's okay as long as you've read them.
Yeah,
So,
I went
yes.
through them.
Perfect. All right.
Second.
Okay, so motion by Contreras, seconded by O'Hara. And then Suhail, can we please call the vote?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Spiele, thank you. On the motion of Board Member Contreras, seconded by Board Member O'Hara, to approve the minutes for the regular board meeting on July 17, Board Member Spiele abstains, and Board Members Desmond and Edson are absent.
All right. Moving on to consent. There are 9 items on our consent agenda for action today. I'll look to Suhail for any public comments.
There are no comments on consent.
Great. At this time, we are ending the public registration to speak on consent items. Before we move on to anybody from the board wanting to take action, I'd like to pass it off to Mr. Donaghy really quick.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to take an opportunity to notate that the last item number 10, or I'm sorry, item number 9 on our agenda listed as 10, is a approved labor agreement between NCTD and the Teamsters Local 542 for our Breeze coach operators. If you recall, on June 29th, we brought our operators in-house. And I just want to take a minute to say how thankful I am to the Teamsters and the team that came and negotiated with us. Clearly, we have a great partnership. And it was a lot of good conversation about the quality of life that we want to have for our employees, responsible pay that we think our employees should have moving forward, really reflecting the hard work that they do. And they came to the table and they were extremely thoughtful. Everything that they asked for, I thought was very reasonable, was very much in the realm of protecting workers, not only workers' rights, but worker protections through safety, managing the things that they do from a scheduling perspective, and really putting all those things together in real time. And I know there's a few members of our local here today, if they could stand up real quick. And Don, I didn't know if anybody over there wanted to say something real quick. If you don't, that's fine. If you do. And that's all I had. I just always want to make sure that Our bargaining units are recognized. One of the things that has always helped me, I think, throughout my career is that we've had a great relationship with our bargaining unit teams. We have a very common thread, and that is the incredible people that work for this organization. And so I'm just very thankful for the way they approached it. I'm thankful to our team as well, who helped negotiate that, and just wanted to make sure everybody was recognized.
Okay, thank you. And it sounds like you all didn't, you all are good. You just want us to pass it. That was it, right? That was, okay. Just making sure. All right, great. So any board members wishing to pull items from consent?
I don't want to pull an item, but I just wanted clarification on item number 3. I can't tell on NCTD Plus the difference between Vista and San Marcos. Yeah, is there?
Yeah, so we did take that into account, the feedback that you gave at the last meeting. Going forward, we're going to separate them out.
Oh,
I
okay.
can forward the breakdown to you after.
Yeah, I'm just super curious because I see it everywhere in Vista, and I've heard really good things
doing
from
really
people. Good. And so I'm really just wanting to take this to my council and be like, hey, it's going good, you guys.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Starting next meeting, you'll see them broken out, and I can send the
Awesome.
numbers to you after.
Thank you. With that, I'll go ahead and move approval of the consent calendar.
Sonella, second.
Okay, motion by Contreras, seconded by Sanella. And we'll go ahead and call a verbal vote.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? On the motion of Board Member Contreras, seconded by Board Member Vice Chair Sanella to approve consent items 2 through 10, motion passes. Board Members Desmond and Edson are absent.
All right. So we are moving on to other business items on the agenda. Over the next 2 items, staff will provide an overview of challenges the transit industry is facing and suggest several recommendations of actions NCTD can take now to avoid some of the drastic changes our peer agencies are having to make. As part of this effort, item 11 is asking the board to set a public hearing to standardize weekend breeze service and modify coaster connection service. So Sean Donaghy, our CEO, and Mary Dover, our Chief of Staff, will present this item. So I'll go ahead and pass it off to them. And I think there's somebody else joining us as well. Yes, I'll let you make the introduction.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so also so Sean will kind of introduce the item, and then I'll go into what we're actually proposing the board to set a public hearing for. And with me, I have Yoni Chalakova. She was recently promoted to Manager of Service Planning, and significantly smarter on all of these things than I am. So she'll answer any of the specific questions that you may have.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just go ahead and kick it off real quick. If you saw the email that I sent you and you read it all the way through, good for you. Clearly, you have nothing to do on the weekend, but we just came back from Boston yesterday, as a matter of fact, from our annual, and we had a lot of conversations. And I will say, I was able to spend some time with the new FTA administrator, Mark Molnaro. And I was very pleased with some of the messaging that he had regarding transit funding and where he really sees transit playing some pretty significant roles both on the rail and the bus side. And so I appreciated his candidness when we talked through that. But I'll say that there's a little bit of an issue, I think, in our industry where some of our larger agencies are being significantly impacted right now, and some of our mid-sized and smaller agencies have sort of these dates in the future where things are definitely going to become a problem for them. Rhode Island Transit, as you can see on there, is probably a little smaller than us. They're going through some pretty significant bus cuts and line cuts. Philadelphia, our friends at SEPTA, have some really great leadership there, but they went through a pretty massive cut in service that also included about a 20% increase in fares that has been a little bit embroiled in a court battle and a few other things. BART has asked the governor for a $750 million loan to be able to sustain service in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is, I think, on being considered by legislation right now. And then our friends to the south of us are working on a few things, including a fare change as well as a potential tax initiative years down the road. I will say that we had heard some information that specific to fare increases that were sent to the board actually asked that to be sent back to the executive committee for redo. And that's kind of where some of these things can occasionally become a little bit problematic. I think for us, it's really about right-sizing the system so that we can make these many changes as we go to try to stave off these sort of in-your-face service cuts that are happening across the nation from some of our transit partners. And so, I really want to give the planning team a lot of credit. When I came in the door, and we really put the map up on the wall, and we said, like, where are areas where we have redundant service? Where are areas where we have these opportunities? And so this is, for operational context, this is our service area, everything in blue here. We did put the coaster connection down there at the bottom. It's Sorrento Valley. The reason that we sort of point that out is it's not in our service area, and we provide service there. Now, there's definitely some reasons for that, and we'll get into that a little bit. But I think, from our operational context, we have a really good-sized service area, probably a lot bigger than most other mid-sized systems just by sort of default of San Diego County. I would say in a few of our areas, we have a lot of overlap, and you'll see some of the pictures that we've taken when we go through the presentation of where we sort of have 3 or 4 or 5 routes sort of overlapping each other in these areas. And one thing that I picked up on sort of as soon as we got here and really was a function of the planning team kind of talking it through with me is we really don't have sort of a consistent service that our riders can point to. We have a weekday service, we have a Saturday service, we have a Sunday service, we have a Friday holiday service, a Saturday holiday service, and a Sunday holiday service. And when you combine that with coaster service and sprinter service, it's just a little bit difficult for our riders, I think, to do. And so when we go through these presentations, for me, I think there are far more benefits to making these subtle changes to the system. One, there's efficiencies that are had by the agency that we'll be able to continue to work off of. 2, consistent weekend ridership is a huge deal for me. Like, whatever bus comes on Saturday is the same bus that should come on Sunday. And we have routes that either don't need weekend service because they were primarily a function of helping schools that are Monday through Friday, or we need to add Sunday service to a route that doesn't have it now, it just has Saturday service. And you'll kind of see when they walk through the schedules where we have this sometimes robust service on Saturday, which probably starts a little too early, and then we have this small Sunday service on the same route. And so if somebody has a weekend job, they may be able to use public transit on Saturday, but they may not be able to use it on Sunday because they just don't run in sort of concert with each other. And so that's really the goal that we're going for here. If we can really, I think the thought process is we really need to rebuild the foundation of the network. I think one thing that our planning team has done over the past 5 years, and the pandemic put a little bit of a halt to that, but up until 2020, we really hadn't reimagined or sort of redesigned what the system looked like. Whatever the system was 25, 30 years ago is about the same thing that the system was in 2020. I think our planning team has done a good job of making some of these adjustments, and the one thing we kind of heard loud and clear was, don't come at us with these one at a times. And I appreciate that. I would prefer not to do that. I think what we wanted to do today, and you'll see this through changes that we are making for our October service that are already in movement, and then the public service hearing that we want to open for 2 months on the other 2, will really set the foundation for us to be able to have frequent, consistent service. And really the consistency piece is the part that we really need to dive into, because we have a lot of routes that do a lot of things, and sometimes they overlap in weird places and sometimes they don't. And we're really trying to streamline what that service looks like throughout all the city so we have connectivity to those items. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mary and let her and Yoni take it over, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sean. So in that vein, we're asking the board to set a public hearing for the November board meeting on 2 sets of service changes. So one is related to the Sorrento Valley Coaster Connection Service. You'll recall in October of 2023, MTS's board voted to discontinue the service due to low ridership. NCTD saw a benefit to continuing the service. So in April 2024, the board voted to continue operation of the service with some slight modifications that were geared toward increasing ridership. NCTD began the service on June 10th, 2024, and over the past year, we've analyzed ridership trends and have been evaluating the best way to serve the community, schools, and businesses in the area. Of the Coaster Connection routes, the 479, which serves UCSD and UTC Shopping and Job Center, and the 473, which serves the areas east of the 805, have generated the highest ridership. The ridership generators on those 2 routes are students taking the service to get to school, And on the eastern section, employees of smaller businesses that aren't able to provide their own employer-sponsored shuttle for their employees to and from the station. NCTD has enjoyed a great partnership with UCSD and has been working with MTS and UCSD to expand access to the Triton UPass. UCSD students overwhelmingly passed the UPass referendum, which provided them with access to the coaster and NCTD Plus. This is in addition to all of the services that they were utilizing before the referendum. So now they have access to all of NCTD's services, including the coaster connection, which was previously not included. This action will also more than double the amount of revenue that NCTD is receiving from the school, and is a huge win for student access, and will undoubtedly further ridership on the 479.
Yeah, if I could just make a quick comment about that. The students were very adamant that they wanted access to NCTD's entire system. I can tell you that MTS negotiated a lower pass price at the request of the student body. We negotiated almost a 205% increase in our pass price, and now they have access to nearly the entire system. Before, they only had access to Breeze and Sprinter. Now they have access to pretty much everything. So, credit to the planning team in Yoon who negotiated that new rate. I think that speaks volumes of our partnership with UCSD.
So today, we are proposing to maintain routes 479 and 473 to ensure that the areas that we see the service needed most, that service is maintained. The elimination of the underperforming routes 471, 472, and 478 will allow NCTD to optimize these two services. So the second piece of this public hearing that we're asking the board to set today is to standardize our weekend schedules. As Sean mentioned, in a lot of cases, we have a separate Saturday schedule and a separate Sunday schedule. It's confusing for customers, and on occasion, it's confusing for operators as well. So we're looking to standardize some of our schedules on the weekends. Planning staff found that weekend schedules were sometimes inconsistent, and that there were also duplicative services that existed that served the areas more effectively. Several major corridors were also missing Sunday service, which is proposed to be added as part of this service change. As we've mentioned, the main goal of standardizing our schedule is to streamline and optimize our services. We're proposing to reallocate some resource hours from the duplicative services to expand service in other areas. So phase one of the weekend standardization, as Sean mentioned, is already underway and will be in effect next month with our service change. Those changes include adjusting weekend service on the 302 from 20 to 30-minute frequencies. We found that 20-minute headways were confusing for customers in some cases and determined that it would be best to move to the industry standard of clock headways. A lot of 15, 30, 45-hour is easier for the customer to understand, and 30-minute headways were the one that fit this service the best. Adjusting run times on the 305 to make the schedule the same on Saturdays and Sundays. Shifting some trips from Saturday to Sunday on the 309 to ensure that we had adequate coverage on both weekend days. And similarly, adjusting run times on the 351 and 352 to have the same schedule on both weekend days. And also, Karina mentioned it, stole my thunder a little bit. As part of this, we are also standardizing the weekend coaster schedule and the schedule on the weekdays as well. Ridership patterns since COVID are less commuter-based, and we don't necessarily see a need for the higher morning and afternoon peaks. So we're looking to smooth out some of those peaks to have a more consistent service on the coaster. As you all know, existing coaster service has major gaps in midday service, which was leading to a mismatch in what the riders were telling us they wanted versus the service that we were providing. Also, Saturday-only service was confusing. We had 2 trips on Saturday that did not match the Sunday schedule, and the late-night service on Friday and Saturday was not at the optimal time. So the updated schedule will reduce those gaps and provide a consistent service throughout the day. We will have at least 1 coaster in every hour block. It won't necessarily be every hour, but at the noon hour, at the 1 o'clock hour, you'll see a coaster. We heard the board and our customers, and we added service in the noon hour to serve people that were going down to downtown for midday meetings or lunch meetings and the like. So we've added that service in there. And another benefit of smoothing out our service peaks is improved on-time performance. We're able to realize that by reducing the potential conflicts with Amtrak and Metrolink service. We've also found that with this new schedule, we don't need to have as many train sets out at one time, so we're able to utilize our resources, also as Karina mentioned, like fuel, which reduces our maintenance obligation as well. So phase 2 is what we're asking the board to set a public hearing on today. And part of that is adding Sunday service to the 304 and the 318. These are major corridors for NCTD, but they were lacking Sunday service. And we're also proposing the elimination of Saturday service on 325 and 347 due to low ridership and duplicative services in those areas. So this just demonstrates the routes in green are going to be adding Sunday service, and the routes in purple are going to be eliminating Saturday service. However, the routes where the Saturday service is proposed to be eliminated, we are providing supplemental service with the 315 on the 325 and NCTD Plus San Marcos for the 347. The 304 and the 318 see promising Saturday ridership, so we view that as a benefit to the district and our riders by shifting some of our resources to Sunday service on those routes. The 325 and 347 we viewed as being better served. Those corridors are better served by the 315 and NCT plus San Marcos respectively. NCTD is proposing a 2-month public comment period to make sure that we're able to communicate as best as possible with our customers and the community on these changes. Information will be posted in English and Spanish on our website, at bus stops, onboard buses that run these routes, in addition to a bilingual legal notice that'll be posted in the newspaper and on our website. We're also going to start hosting virtual open houses as an additional way to garner public feedback, take any rider questions and questions from the community. And then, as we've always done, we're going to be meeting the people, the riders where they are, and hitting those really high touch points at the Palomar College Transit Center, Carlsbad Village Station, and Sorrento Valley Coaster Station. So today, NCTD staff is recommending that the board set a public hearing on November 20th, 2025 for the following proposed service changes: elimination of flex routes 471, 472, and 478, elimination of Saturday service on Breeze Route 425 and 347, and the addition of Sunday service on Breeze 304 and 318. And Sean, Yoni, and I are available for any questions.
Great, thank you. And I'm going to look towards Suhail for public comment today.
We do have a telephone comment, Mr. Glenn Leader, and we're getting him on the phone right now.
Great, okay, we'll wait for that, thank you.
Yes, I'm commenting about the elimination of certain services, particularly the 325 Saturday service. For me to have to walk all the way from where I live all the way to Carlsbad Village Drive to catch the 315. That's why I'm opposed to the elimination of the 325 Saturday service. And anything else?
Thank you. Do you have anything else to add, sir? I think we did hear your comment. Is there anything else you'd like to add? You do have a little bit of time remaining.
That's it for now.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thanks for calling in.
We have no further public comment on this item.
Okay, thank you. All right, at this time, we will end the public registration to speak on this item. Well, I know I have a few questions, but I will wait until the end. So I'll look to see if any of my colleagues have any questions or comments regarding this item.
So I guess.
Yeah, I'll start with Board Member O'Hara, and then I'll go to Board Member Contreras.
Sure, thank you, appreciate that. I'm kind of parallels off of that public comment. I was just looking at our choices here of some of the changes we're making to services. And I noticed, like in that case, there are multiple routes that overlap, and we seem to eliminate entire routes rather than eliminating portions or stops, exactly, of routes. And why? Is there a reason for that, that we could connect to that? And is there a thought process behind that?
With respect to the 315 and the 325?
I
Or
think,
just
yeah,
in
it's an easy
general?
one to look at because they both essentially end pretty close together. And the comment was about that, so.
Yeah, the 315 and the 325 are interesting because they are supplemental services to each other. We make that deviation on the 325 in Carlsbad to serve a school that's there, and as Sean mentioned, there isn't a great need to serve that school area on the weekend, so service will still be provided on the 315 for the majority of the route.
Anything else, board member?
I have other questions, but I just wanted to address that public comment because it overlapped with that
You
question.
can keep
so.
going.
I
We'll
will
just.
yield the floor and you can come back to me.
Are
Thank
you sure?
Yes. appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Board member Contreras.
You know what, thank you, because actually I wanted to kind of jump off of the public comment as well. And if someone could just walk me through, if I'm this individual, right, and I have these concerns, can you walk me through what it looks like to overcome those concerns?
Yeah, I think it's through our outreach process and ensuring that the public is aware that there is a service option for them, and it does exist on the 315. We can speak to them about the schedule. We can gather feedback on where they're going and coming from and provide them with information through that outreach.
So I know that this is probably not something you're prepared to do, but I'm just curious if someone could just tell me what this person's route would be, or, you know.
Yeah, essentially it would be the 315. I think, as you'll see with the 323 presentation on the next one, the part of the public hearing that we really need is there may be an opportunity for us to deviate the 315 on the weekend to cover that very small portion of the 325 that's not covered by the rest of it. So 90% of that route is covered by both of those routes, or by another route to the north of it. And so when we talk about like the 315 going all the way through north, when it comes back down, there's a possibility that we could have it run that piece of the 325 that's getting cut off, just a reverse directional. But we need that kind of feedback, like where are you located in that equation so that we can do it. Most of the feedback that we received, especially along the 323, was you're pulling service out of my area. And then once we said, well, actually, there's a supplemental service with X, especially when we started talking about NCTD Plus in San Marcos on the 347. You know, you have all these areas where there's already sort of overlap on a lot of these routes. They're just not set up correctly when you remove a Saturday piece. And I think to Mary's point, that's what we need from the public hearing. We need somebody to come and say, I live a mile and a half to the south there, and so I'm going to have to walk to get to that 315, and then we can make potential deviations.
Yeah, because it
to
looks like
service.
that's the deviation between where there's service now and potentially no service is like a quarter, 3/4 of a mile to a mile, like radius, right?
Yeah.
Further down. And just a question on how you get public comment. So, you know, obviously you had to register, the individual had to register to make this public comment. Is there someone that's going to follow up with the caller, the public
We
comment?
certainly can to
Okay.
get more information.
Yeah, I would really appreciate that, because I think that's probably, if that's not a practice that we do already, I think it'd be good, because they're providing us the information, we can, you know, potentially reach back out. The other question that I have is for the public, you know, process, and for the board members' information. Is there a ability to have like the writer's guide be in draft form as to like what the changes would look like? At some point, I don't know at what point it makes sense to do that, but I think it'd be good for us. I don't think we've ever reviewed a writer's guide, but you know, they're on every bus and folks go through them, and I would just love to see, just so I understand, so I don't have to like take the route myself and figure it out, but I can like see it in my head, right? Like where the changes would be. Does that make sense?
No,
Is that something that's doable?
It totally makes sense, and it's actually something we've had a conversation about internally, that we are trying to get away from the rider guide. What we really want is a small guide that has a system map and a listing of all of our routes and where they come from and a listing of our transit terminals. What we really want is individual schedules for each route that exists so that when we make these changes, they don't have to flip through a book to try to find it. 'Cause I can only speak for myself that when I interviewed here, it was very difficult for me to go through the ride guide and find
Yeah.
out which routes we're doing.
Oh,
well.
I'm 100% back any kind of effort to create better mapping for and that goes along with the wayfinding. But until we do that, I would love to see some kind of a draft form just so I can thumb through it and get a feeling for the changes and, how I would move if I were, someone that utilized this route, what the deviation would feel like.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I know it's like really difficult once you get any kind of distance that's more than 1,000 feet. It can make it really difficult for people to get there. So
Yeah, and I think that's the benefit of the public hearing too, is I think the model that we really want to get to in our public hearings is a lot less presentation-like and more station for routes. Like, come and see the station for the route that you're concerned about. Give us that feedback. Let us show you the alternatives that exist when we change it, because when we put a full palette like this together, you don't see right off the bat like, oh, we're going to deviate this route, or there's another route that services that area. And those are the pieces of information we want to show and have somebody point to a map and say, well, I live right here. Tell me how I'm going to get to the bus. And we'll definitely point that individual toward the public hearing. And the one thing we're going to do this time too, that I don't think we've done before, we're going to do some virtual public hearings on
okay, yeah, that's fantastic.
Facebook and a few other places, so we can just have people ask us questions in the chat. We can answer them in real time. Really solicit that public feedback that way too, because we know there are a lot of folks that sort of watch us on social media and
Yeah.
might be a good place to get some
And is
information.
there any kind of like animated like scenario that could, I don't know what technology you all have. Oh, yeah. But is there, a way, talking about social media and whatnot, where, the public could get some more information with like some kind of visual showing that this is happening or this line is changing or anything like that? I mean, I would just really recommend that, because people talk. And so you just need one writer. I ride the system a lot. And so I see people, they see each other, they recognize each other, and word spreads. So I think if we even just get a small percentage of folks that are writers that get to see that, they can like spread the information as well. But if we do have the ability to do that, that would be really cool.
Yeah, I think our goal.
Because your all social media has been really good lately.
Yeah.
I will tell you.
Yeah, Mary's team has been rocking it. And I'll say our goal has been to get to very specific information about maybe not the whole meal, but one piece of it. This is the route change.
Yeah.
Here's an animation of what that looks like
Yes.
in real time. Long-term, what we want to do also is we want to video each one of the routes, mainly for training for our operators. I mean, we already sort of have that, but in a little more detailed fashion that has like wayfinding points and put those out to the public. So if they haven't ridden that route for the first time, they can look at that video and say, okay, I need to get off at the Walmart, or I need to get off at the doctor's office. And they have sort of an idea of what that looks like in real time when they're watching the video. So-
Amen to that. I love that all. Thank you all so much. Those are all my comments for now.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments over here? I know I have some, but I'll go back to you now.
I was just kind of informational question. The start of the presentation, you mentioned that BART is down, and looking at what we have to overcome. I ride BART frequently, visiting family, friends. Trains are full. High usage, trains are full, trolleys are full, all their vehicles seem to be occupied. And I see us struggling with a different challenge. And so I'm wondering how they are behind and what that means in coordination for us.
Yeah, I think for the bigger systems, it's a combination of fare enforcement issues that lead to reduced fare revenue. I would say capital costs in larger agencies. San Francisco Muni, which is the bus system that complements the BART, immediately implemented about $350 million worth of cuts a couple weeks ago. I think when you're operating at that magnitude, sort of these peripheral things can really come to get you quick, which is legacy routes that exist in neighborhoods that are largely driven by needs of certain cities. And then when they go back and review the data on them, they just don't check out right. And I think we have the ability to sort of course correct that in real time. And it's really not a space for us where we're trying to reduce the service hours necessarily that we're running. We want to pull those service hours and have them at the ready to be able to launch new services, especially in corridors, like the 325 and the 315. And you'll see on one of these pictures, or I think it was that on this slide? The picture with all the blades?
Next
That's
presentation.
the next presentation. So we have a picture in the next presentation that has like a stop that has like 4 or 5 blades on it. And that's a problem. Because essentially that's 2 operators at minimum and X amount of service hours that we could put into a new location to run service. And so I think for the larger systems, it's a little bit of an infrastructure piece in addition to a declining sales tax. And the Bay Area is experiencing the same thing we are, which is declining population and thus declining sales tax. But there it is. There's that picture right there.
I was wrong. It's this presentation.
That's my favorite picture of all time. So when we look at stuff like that, and it was interesting because I got all worked up because I drove by that stop and went straight to Mary's office and said, "Wow, that's crazy." I might have said something else, but yeah, that's not my
it's on
picture.
just
I
away.
didn't. I didn't take the picture.
Just away.
But it's kind of, in the bigger systems, there's a lot of redundancy that I think could be fixed. And I love BART. Whenever I'm in San Francisco, that's the system I ride. And you're right, they're full. If you're going to a basketball game, it's full over to the Chase Center. If you're going to, any of the outlying cities, and I think they have a good network and they've got great leadership and great employees. I think there's just been a little bit of a reluctancy, I think, locally for them to want to change those services, and they sort of ran themselves into a point where we don't have the long-term money without dipping into reserves. And so that was where they kind of came to the crossroad. And I think our team, and I'll give them tons of credit, they have, between our finance department and our operations teams, have done a great job of existing in the world that we are funded at. I think I've said it before that when we did our last budget cycle, it was about 10 million less than what we did my first budget cycle in '24. And we want to be responsible with it. We want the service to be out there. We want it to be frequent, but the overlap, I think, kind of hurts us a little bit, and trying to find ways to do that is sort of chief concern to us. So there's a little bit of differences there. I think the same thing that BART's experiencing a little bit is happening down to the south of us. And, when it's twofold, right? Like I go to a SANDAG meeting or and I watch the MTS meetings, and we have lots of conversations in here. And I love the fact that our local leaders have a ton of passion about what they want to see in the region. But if we're deadlocked and we don't make decisions in real time that can sort of help us, right the ship as we go for the next couple of years while we're looking for an additional funding source, it creates these duplicative problems that we can't solve later on down the road. And then it sort of seems like a shock drop when we have to make that change. And I hate that for some of my peers in the industry, because I think they do a great job of putting service out, and I think they do a great job of managing the networks they have. It's one thing I love about this agency. We have a really good ability, I think, to move and swing when we need to, but protect the service in the best way possible for the people that need it.
Anything else? That's it? Okay, great. Perfect. All right, so I'll ask some of my questions now, and thank you again for the presentation. First, I know for the 309, we mentioned potentially shifting some of the Saturday service to the Sunday service. Does that mean those certain routes would be eliminated from Saturday and then added to the Sunday service? I'm just confirming.
Yeah, so we're proposing to trim the schedule on the Saturdays. We see very, very, very low ridership on those very early morning and very late evening trips on the 309. And so we're effectively proposing to shift those trips over to Sunday to standardize the schedule.
Okay, great. Thank you for the clarification. And then for the times with regards to outreach, I know you mentioned there are, I think it's like 4 or 5 different times that you'll be out talking to the community with regards to this. And so I'm just curious, with regards to the dates, were those picked based on ridership and how many people we're going to see at those times, or what was it based on? Just because I know we have, maybe I'll stop there and then I'll share my comment. So
Yes, we've picked outreach at these particular locations and at these particular times based off of ridership patterns.
Okay. Yeah, I think the only reason why I was curious is because for instance, if we pick Carlsbad, I notice it's Saturday, and I'm assuming, yes, maybe our station does have more ridership on Saturdays versus like if we're looking at Sorrento Valley, you see Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I guess the one thing that I was curious about is that on Wednesdays, for instance, we have our farmers market. And so I'm just wondering if outreach during those times might be of interest. But I'm guessing you're trying to catch riders as they're coming off and say, hey, we need your feedback.
Right, we're trying to catch those Saturday riders on the 325 to make sure that they're aware. We're certainly not opposed to adding additional outreach, and we can definitely look at what'll get us the best bang for our buck.
Yeah, okay. And then I think when you were sharing with regards to the feedback, as we're receiving feedback for some of these routes, so kind of in line with what was shared with the public comment, we have the ability to potentially fine tune some of our routes to ensure that we're still meeting that gap in case we hear a lot of feedback saying, hey, if you eliminate this stop, it's just going to impact my way to get to work. So we have the ability to fine tune that and fix that.
Yeah, we, in the next presentation, we'll kind of go into how that process worked on the 323, the public feedback that we received and the feedback that we received from the board and how that informed the service change that we proposed for that route. We can certainly take the same view with this public hearing. Unfortunately, we're never going to be able to serve everybody. We would like to, but so this is not a promise that if we receive a public comment, but if we receive a flood of public comments and it makes operational sense for us to make that change, we can certainly consider it and bring it to the board.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question is around the virtual, I think it was the virtual open house or virtual ways for folks to get involved. I hope it's going to be fruitful. I know I've noticed it can depend on what it is. It can be hit or miss. You might have 2 people joining in. You might have hundreds of people joining in. I think one of the things I know in the past I've asked is if we could do some sort of surveys that we put out, and I know we've done that, but is there a way for us to maybe, with the geolocation, have an ability to just send it out? I feel like, yes, of course, we're gonna get hopefully we get our very active writers that are checking our social anyways, but maybe we'll get other people that really do wanna utilize this service and they have the ability to then give some feedback as well. But I just wanted to throw that out there, that a survey would be a great way for somebody who may want to take the time instead of having to, I can tell you as a millennial, maybe they may not want to join in on online on some sort of forum. They might just want to do it on their own time. So I just wanted to throw another option if that's possible out there. So
Yeah, we can certainly consider that.
okay, awesome. I think that's it for me. I don't see anybody else jumping out of their seats to ask anything else. So I'm assuming we are good. So thank you again. And I know that we need to have a motion to approve this item. So can I have a motion and a second?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion by O'Hara, second by Joyce. And Suhail, can we please call the vote?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? On the motion of Board Member O'Hara, seconded by Board Member Joyce, to set the public hearing for proposed brief weekend standardization and coaster connection service changes. Motion passes with Board Members Desmond and Edson absent.
Great, thank you. And then the next and last item on the agenda is to conduct a public hearing related to the proposed elimination of Breeze Route 323. And Mr. Donaghy and Ms. Dover will present this item, so I'll go ahead and pass it off to them.
I'll kick this one off. So as the board will remember, the board voted in June to open a public hearing for the proposed elimination of Breeze 323, and NCTD staff have been conducting outreach to communicate the proposed changes to our riders in the community. In this item, we'll give an overview of feedback we received and service considerations we're taking into account with the staff recommendation. So this map is just to reorient you with where the 323 exists with some of our other services in the area. 323 is outlined in orange, and other blue routes are routes that we view that we see are higher performing in the adjacent areas. The 323 covers the Rancho del Oro area, cuts down Emerald, and then over to the Quarry Creek area. Staff brought the proposed elimination of the 323 to the board in June due to low ridership in comparison to adjacent routes. 323 accounts for 0.3% of total Breeze ridership and is far less productive than other routes in the area, in particular the 311, 313, and 325, which staff highlighted as providing duplicative service with some sections of the 323. One of the things we've always kept in mind with the proposed elimination of the 323 was to maintain school connections, particularly with El Camino High School. So shown here is the stop level ridership for the bus stops serving the school. And as I'll note, the 311 and the 323 have the stops that see the highest ridership in this area. Another driving force for shifting away from the existing 323 route were impacts to city roadway infrastructure. We consistently heard from operators that the dip in the road on the left turn from College to Olive causes buses to bottom out and scrape the skid plate. This operational condition posed potential maintenance challenges and had a consistent impact on the road, as you can see in this picture. So we took those operational considerations and public feedback that we received throughout the public hearing and looked for ways to maintain connections while still optimizing our available resources. Upon approval to move forward, NCTD will reroute 3 adjacent routes to continue service to key destinations and will actually be able to expand connections through this change. So this is the service as it exists now. You'll see again, the 323 has duplicative service in some areas with the 325, the 311, and the 313. And then this map illustrates what we're proposing to change. So in purple, those are 2 critical connections that we're proposing to maintain with this route, and that's consistent service to El Camino High School and then Tri-City Medical Center. We really wanted to make sure that we were able to maintain those connections. We viewed those as critical. The riders viewed those as critical, and they saw some of the highest ridership. But we're also proposing to add additional connections through this reroute. So we're able to change the 311, the 313, and the 325. And in particular, on the 311, we're able to expand connections to Miracosta College, adding an additional route and a north-south connection. We've heard from the college that a lot of their ambassadors that go to El Camino High School, they might not have driver's license and they're having to Uber right now. So we're able to provide this connection from the college to El Camino High School for students and ambassadors alike. We're also maintaining that connection to the Quarry Creek, which is the 4 area right there. It's actually an expansion along Lake Boulevard. And then we're going to be able to serve the Vista DMV for the first time that's located in the 5 area. So these proposed reroutes will actually help us expand service to some critical destinations. So public outreach was conducted in both English and Spanish and included ride-alongs on the 323 and outreach at one of our busier stops to communicate with the students. Information was posted on the website, at bus stops, and onboard buses that serve the 323. In the agenda packet, you'll see a summary of the feedback that we received, some of which is reflected in the reroute. As part of the proposed elimination, we have also conducted a Title VI analysis and determined that through this elimination, no disparate impact or disproportionate burden was identified. So today we are asking the board to approve the proposed elimination of Breeze Route 323, which will trigger the realignment of adjacent routes in the, to expand connections in the area. And with that, we'll take any questions.
All right, thank you. Suhail, do we have any public comments today for this item?
Yes, we do have an in-person comment, Ms. S.L. Henderson. If you want to go to the podium. And you have 3 minutes.
I've been here before. On behalf of the 323, I don't think you answered my question on just who do you service. Okay, the interruption with your smart devices. I'm a senior, 78 years old, no family, and lost my last friend. Okay, I have no means with your smart devices, and I ask people questions, and they say they got theirs. So that means I'm still a student. So, but anyway, it matters not to me about the 323, because these are the reasons it doesn't matter. And when you say the people that need it, you open it for a senior, you open the door for anybody to come in and take over with seniors on the go, Ubers, taxis, personal people coming into your personal life when you want to stay in the public and probably meet somebody. But anyway, these are the reasons. I have a neighbor here who is in the same ship I'm on. This is like a secret meeting to me. I just heard day before yesterday. But when you I don't recognize people, the poor people, and the poorest of the people, I wouldn't be able to attend this if it wasn't for someone like him. You're only fooling yourselves with the pump when you don't have stops at passing rides. You passes 3 passing rides on the 323 parking ride. You pass 3 parking rides on the 323, and you don't have a stop at either one of them. Well, you got one on. You got one stop. Okay. I written a letter to the transportation of Vista with the red light at the Sprinter. With the 323, I missed 2 buses going both ways because you don't have a stop for a connection at the red light there, Vista and Emerald. You got to go all the way down to past West Drive to get off and then walk back. A senior, and it takes more than 26 seconds to get back to there. But I missed connections, and I written a letter to the Vista. The buses don't even wait. Don't wait for the Sprinter. It don't take but 2-3 minutes for them to wait for the Sprinter, for the buses that's sitting at the light, but they go to the light and sit too and wait. That's it. I submitted, the last time I was here, I submitted a suggestion because the 325 and the 315 runs into each other on the same route, and then they're not going, you cut out. That's when you wanted to cut out the 323 then. I suggested that you merge the 323 with the 325 because they said that they had to modify the 323 because of the drop there. It was too dangerous.
Ms. Henderson.
The 389.
Ms. Henderson, thank you so much.
There was an unsafety
Okay.
turn there.
Ms. Henderson, we can have.
Your technology had more than 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much for your feedback, and I'm sure we can have one of our staff follow up with you to make sure we hear the rest of your comment. Thank you. All right, so with that, I will go ahead and see if anybody on our team has any questions or comments. All right, Vice Chair Sinella.
Thank you, and thanks for the presentations. I waited till the end of both of them just to make some comments and to say thank you for all the work and effort that's been put into these. I'll never know, we have so many bus lines and other options, like I'll never have the level of detail to make the decisions that you're making, but I can tell that you put a lot of thought into them, and they're based on data, and they're based on trying to drive more efficiency, and they're also based on trying to keep this agency fiscally sound, and for that, I appreciate it. And so everybody in the room that was involved on this, thank you so much for your efforts.
Thank you. I'll go down this way instead since we started here. So anything else? No, that's fine. Any Mr. O'Hara?
So I'm reading through the report. I feel like we had a lot more public comment, written public comment, and phoned-in public comment than we generally have in these reports. And I know there are really tough choices to make. We've gone back and forth in this boardroom a lot about how hard these choices are to make. Does the fact that we received that much more public comment and feedback, what effect does that have in this process?
Yeah, but I would say it's a good thing. Honestly, I get concerned when we don't get public comment. When we went through and read several of the comments that were listed in the public comment, there are options for those. And I think the responsibility that we have, if we move forward with this, is to make sure that we reach out to each one of those individuals and say, in your case specifically, this is the change that, and how can we help you get to that change? I think initially just the thought of, man, my route's going away, what does that mean for me? And there's other things on the periphery that we've changed. I think we have a responsibility post-decision to go back to our public commenters and really be thoughtful about, I think to Director Contreras' point earlier, we gotta be better about putting that information out to the public post-decision to make sure that if you have a comment or you need help getting to whatever the result of that is, we have an option for you. There are a few in there that do create a little bit of an issue for the rider. By and large, most of them have an outlet to be able to move through to another route based on the feedback that we received.
That's great. And I want to thank everyone who did send in public comment. We really encourage and appreciate the participation in this. And once again, I want to thank staff for analyzing all the data we have here and working on a very hard decision.
Yeah, if I could just piggyback off that again, I'm a huge fan of public comment, even in the face of difficult decisions, because it tells us what our next move needs to be, or if there's things that we need to continue to change. I get very worried when we do something that is potentially large in scale and we get one public comment. I'm like, oh, that's not good. That means we either didn't communicate effectively on the front side or we have missed the boat for 20 years when we've had around that area, right? So I always appreciate the public feedback, and I hope that we continue to see public feedback at that rate.
Great, thank you. Board Member Garcia, anything? Board Member Joyce?
Yeah, I mean, it is a lot of, it is a lot of public feedback, and I do want to say thank you for showing what kind of changes we're looking at to really address the concerns and to address, the basic needs of our riders. Like that's the short end of it, is that we have folks that rely on a service, and so we have to make sure that they get there. Are all of the students who wrote in, are we confident that they have an option that isn't overly burdensome? There were several students that wrote in.
Yeah, so we spoke to some of the students that are going to be able to utilize the other routes that we're proposing to reroute to maintain that connection to El Camino. We did have one student that may have to walk to a different stop to catch at the start of their run, and there are going to unfortunately be those instances. The majority of the students will be able to use the rerouted services.
And are these comments ones, you may have covered this, and I apologize if you did. Are these comments one that they submitted after having conversations with you about their possible options?
Combination of both.
Yeah.
It's any comments we received through the public hearing period, so they may have sent them in and then received information at a open house or a public hearing. It's a combination of both, probably.
Okay. I guess that's all I have for right this second.
Board Member Contreras?
Yeah, I know at a different meeting, we were talking, I don't know if it's a board policy, but there's a certain threshold of riders, is like 15,000 or something like that. Can someone remind me what that is?
Yeah, it's twofold. We have there's a couple different ways we look at it. There's a passengers per hour. So when we break a route down, we look at it sort of two different ways. There's passengers generated by service hours. So there may be routes that only have, like Coaster Connection is a perfect example. Our UCSD route generates 10,000 rides a year, but we only operate in the morning and in the afternoon. So by the numbers, it's an okay route. 17,000 rides for 323, which operates a larger schedule, falls on the low end. I think the concern for us is when you break that route down to a passengers per hour and you look at each run that runs in certain hours, there were blocks of hours where there were more riders than most, but those geographically fell in regions where the other two routes had overlap. Where there wasn't a lot of ridership was sort of the branch off of the 323 in certain areas and not during school hours. So really our focus on the 323 came in the high school, where will the students go? Do they have opportunity to get on other routes? And in this case, they do, with the exception of one or two, which will have to walk, I think, north, a little further north to get to another stop.
So, I mean, I'm concerned about that population. When I look at the desperate impact on the minority population with our threshold being 10% and this brushing up at 9.2%, I think that my concern is completely founded, So I don't know. I have a difficult time, not understanding how those folks are going to be able to connect. So,
Yeah, I think there's a connection point there. And I'll just say we need to be careful when we talk about disparate impact, because disparate impact is a number that's based on population. It's not based on ridership. So right now, we already have an area that has a disparate impact that's not riding the bus. So there are two different conversations that we're having in real time. If it was an area that was high ridership, big disparate impact, in an area that has a disparate impact, that's a whole different conversation. Right now, we're talking about essentially moving off of a route a half of a mile, which is the industry standard, half a mile to get to a bus route. And based on the reroutes, we're connecting people to 3 more things that they never had access to before, between the Walmart shopping center, the DMV, and a few other, and essentially Tri-City. So there's a lot of pluses beyond this. I don't disagree with you on the concern
I
at all.
totally hear the pluses. I'm worried about the minus, and how we can really help those folks out. And I think there needs to be a considerable effort to outreach to those folks. Considerable.
I'm sorry, can I clarify a
Yeah,
little bit?
sure.
Yeah, so when we analyze the disparate impact and disproportionate burden, we're not necessarily saying that 15,000 people are losing service. We've brought to the board the elimination of the 323, and so that's what the Title VI analysis is.
Correct.
But through this reroute, we're actually going to be able to serve a lot of those populations. It's just not reflected in the Title VI analysis, because we aren't asking the board necessarily to approve the reroute. We're asking the board to propose the elimination. So a lot of that population will have that service maintained through this reroute.
So is that to me begs the question, is there a board policy that needs to be reviewed so that we could also get that information concurrently to having this discussion? Because I think that's really important information, and I don't think that there is a process right now for that. And it's probably additional staff time, and I don't know if we have the ability to do it, but I would like to investigate whether that's the case, because this is just one of many eliminations that we're probably going to talk about.
Yeah, I would say historically, we have not had that practice, but I don't think it would be an issue for us to do that if that was asked of us going into the future. I would say,
I 100% ask that
Yeah,
of,
I would say
of this organization.
I would say the one thing that we have made every attempt to do that historically we have not is, if we're going to eliminate a route, how can we cover that with another route? So
Right.
that whatever that impact is not significant in nature to the ridership. And again, our system is very unique. This is the first system I've worked at that has this much overlap on bus in certain areas. And unfortunately, that location has probably the most route overlap in the system. And so the goal for us, I think, eventually is to try to get to a high-frequency service along that corridor that connects to circulators at the end of those lines to bring them to the one line. Right now, the other 2 lines sort of solve that problem for us in real time. But I do agree that, and to Mary's point, in this case, 15,000 people are being impacted, but those 15,000 people, the vast majority of them, I would say 95+%, are going to just have to switch to another route and not necessarily get on the 323. The remaining group, which is a small portion of Emerald, is the one that's impacted, but Emerald is a half a mile from the other stops for the reroutes.
So sorry, I was just conferring with
Yeah,
Tony. I
sure.
don't want to promise something that would be inconsistent with federal standards. So we do the Title VI analysis on the proposed elimination. If the Title VI analysis comes back and says there is a disparate impact, or there is a disproportionate burden, then we would just prove that we are providing some type of elimination. We've done that through this reroute, even though it didn't trigger the disparate impact. So we are, I can't promise that we could provide like a Title VI analysis that says this number of people are actually the ones being impacted, but we are doing the mitigation that would have been required if we had hit that threshold, even though we didn't. So we
Yeah.
are working to cover the
Well,
populations that.
and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the numbers you're looking for are not necessarily that, but if we reroute routes to cover
Right.
those areas, what is the population total that would be
Yeah,
impacted
and even
through
if
that?
it's not required through, federal standards, I think it would be good board practice just because you said in this meeting, right, we have to look at our routes, and at the end of the day, I know that, with all this overlapping, it wouldn't be an issue necessarily if we didn't have budget constraints. So this really is about budget and about eliminating $500,000.
Well, I would push back on that a little bit. I have been very frank with the staff that I want to eliminate some of these routes to create service hour opportunities for expansion without expanding the budget. So I don't think it's necessarily
But
fully
it
budget
comes,
related, but
it's 100% budget related. However you slice it, you're saying it one way and I agree with you, and I'm
Yeah.
saying it a different way, and we have different slices of the same cake, but
Right.
this is 100% about the budget.
yeah, I would agree that it's budget related in the sense that we will not have additional operating revenue to expand service, and this is a way for us to try to
Yeah.
do that.
This goes back to the right sizing.
Yeah,
So-
totally agree.
But anyways, so that,
More
yes.
clarification, yeah.
Yes.
So we can certainly get the population numbers, but I do have stop level ridership to just see at least the population that's currently riding the service, what the impact would be. So and I'm just gonna highlight the sections of the 323 that are not gonna be served by the realignment and the re-envisioning of the other routes. And I can provide this also as well.
Yes, please.
There's a section on, is this Old Grove Road? East of El Camino High School, that will not have service on it right now. There's one rider that utilizes that stop on average every day. And then the section on Emerald, that is not gonna see any service. The service will be on Thunder. There's average activity of 34. And the highest daily boarding at one of those stops is only 0.15 miles away from the proposed reroute on Thunder. So
Okay.
it is a relatively low number of, at least, riders that are currently riding.
And this was not provided in the packet,
It was
but
not, we
it's,
just had it
is
prepared.
that the foundation for the diagram that has the bubbles on it?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly, yes,
I'm
yeah.
like, just because if you had this, you used it probably for something. So I was like, I know I saw this, but not like this. So I would really love for moving forward in the future that we receive that information. I know that, we get so much information, it's like difficult to read it all,
Try
but
to find a delicate balance.
yeah, I know, but I think that is really critical. I love the higher level view with the bubbles too. But being able to get into that, because then I can understand, one of the other things to me is, around this area, we don't always have good infrastructure for people to walk. It's not super safe. So that's like a whole other issue. So when we're looking at, eliminating routes or whatever, like, I know that we don't need to take that into consideration, but it is a factor in real life. So anyways, those are all my comments. But thank you so much, and I look forward to getting even more information in the future.
I appreciate that feedback. If I could dive into that a little bit, when we look at those routes, and I can only say, like, when we're in the office looking at those, we literally go through stop analysis on every route of who gets on at what time, and it's just, and it's a combination of, do we really need this run at 4:30 in the morning that averages one rider per day, when we could slide that into more frequent service during peak time? And so that data exists. It's in the back. We kind of do the heat map thing because it's a little more, a little easier on the eyes in the board meeting. But we can definitely get you that back office information.
Okay, I have Board Member Joyce and then Board Member O'Hara.
I would also like to sign up for the expanded packet. Sounds like a kill a horse, but I'll take it. Couple more questions just came to mind. So can you go back to the heat map dot one? 'Cause you said I think you said it averages one rider per day, that east one, but it has a pretty decent dot there for ECH ridership. Does that mean most of the riders of that route come for the ECH, the El Camino High School students?
Okay. So the section that is the one rider per day. So you can see in the existing routes, the existing 323, there's this section that goes down Avenida del Ora. So with the proposed reroutes, Mesa Drive will still be served by the 313. So what we're talking about with the sections of the 323 that won't be served by any other transit route, it's just this section right here that goes down Avenida del Ora. There are stops along there, and that's where we're seeing one rider per day. So we really wanted to look at the stop level ridership, make sure the stops that do have high ridership are still served by something else in the reroute or adjacent to another route.
Okay, I was mixing up two different spots.
Well, right, and I said east of El Camino High School, but not immediately adjacent. Yeah, my apologies.
Thanks, and that's not even at 323, so I was really off. Just a note, because I saw the outreach times, and you came on a Wednesday at 2:30, 3:30, and they have early release that day, so you probably didn't catch any of the afternoon kids at the school, because they would have gotten out at 1:30.
So I was the one who did the outreach that day. And we did make sure to be there. I was tracking the early release, so we did make sure to be there beforehand. We were there before even MLK Middle School arrived and waited until the school released. And we watched all the students kind of cross the crosswalk and wait for the 323 to come up. And I talked to each individual student and asked them exactly like where they're trying to go, what this would mean, and had those conversations with every student at the bus stop.
Wonderful. And then, just because it does sound like the reroutes are the realignments that are proposed are not being voted on today, are they locked in? Is that like happening if we make this change?
So
or
if the one sets off the other, essentially with the approval of the 323, we would immediately move into the reroute of all this. They're complementary of each other. We just can't do the one without the other.
And I understand, because just the way it's talked about is we could do these things. I just want to make sure that.
No, they are it's cause and effect.
Okay. All right. Well, I definitely appreciate the expanded information on this one, and it definitely helps. It is a leap of trust, obviously, to make such a big change, but I think we have to trust each other on this, so I'm gonna support it.
All right, thanks, Board Member Joyce. I know Board Member O'Hara, you had something.
With the reroute, I understand that there'll be more desirable stops on the new reroute than there were prior, right? So I hear us discussing the number of riders who will be left off. Is there also a way, if we're going to track that, if we can track the number of new riders we're going to get by having a more desirable route?
Yeah, we do track stop level ridership, so as we start to implement these re-envisionings of the routes, we can definitely look at the stop level ridership, and we may make a determination that the DMV, for example, which we expected to be a ridership driver, may not be.
We get a lot of one-ways, and then when they get their driver's license, they don't ride anymore.
So it's possible
We
that
will
maybe
continue to track, yes.
this may even create new riders that we don't have numbers
Absolutely.
for. So we could see ridership go up, and therefore our cost of operation be more efficient.
And I can speak to, we did a similar reroute for the 347 a few years back, and that was something that we tracked very specifically, where we tracked where the areas that we expanded and what that did for the route level ridership throughout the year that we advanced, and it showed that the ridership increased pretty significantly, and that's something that we brought back to the city, and kind of an ongoing conversation we have with the operators too.
Super. And I'm sure it gets complicated to predict the future, and I know that you guys are doing the best you can, so I appreciate those answers. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, not seeing anything. Thank you for this. I know this was a hard conversation and decision, and really appreciate everyone's effort on this, and of course, all the comments that were made. I'd love to hear the feedback as we move forward on how it's going. Doesn't mean that we have to always stick to this, right? I mean, I hope that it'll work out, and it sounds like it will hopefully be something that we can move forward with, but always, I think we're always a work in progress. So hopefully just getting those data points and hearing from folks as we're moving forward will be a good way for us to keep a pulse on how it's going. So with that, I will look for a motion and a second.
Sinella, move to approve.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Sinella, seconded by O'Hara. Suhail, may we please call the vote?
Yes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? On the motion of Vice Chair Sinella, seconded by Board Member O'Hara, to close the public hearing and approve the proposed elimination of Breeze Route 323, effective February 2026. Motion passes. Board Members Desmond and Edson absent.
Thank you. All right, we are moving on to the CEO's report. Sean, do you have anything to report?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. First of all, I want to say I very much appreciate the feedback that we get from this board. I've worked a few places where we didn't always get that, and I like the questions. I appreciate the approach. I appreciate the tough questions that we get because we need to be able to answer those in real time when we're making changes like this, and so I always like to say thank you for that. Is Nick still in the room? Where's Nick at? Stand up, Nick. So Nick Soulful, who's worked for us for quite a while now, was recently hired as the new Executive Director and CEO of the North Central Regional Transportation District. So he's moving from NCTD to NCRTD. It's really a unique opportunity. I've been fortunate in my career to have a lot of people that I worked with move into that CEO role or move into other roles. And it's just really is such a pleasure to watch that. That's really what we want out of our industry, is to see people succeed and kind of move on to whatever that next role is that they think is important for them. So I just wanted to recognize Nick and say thank you for your service and give him a big round of applause. And Yoni did a phenomenal job today, and she has stepped in to fill in for Katie Persons, who is our Director of Service Planning. She also got an excellent opportunity to work with our friends to the north at Orange County Transportation Authority. They have a little bit of a different setup than we do from a planning perspective. They do a lot of tolling and roads and a lot of different types of planning. We just, have bus and rail. So she got a really great opportunity up there, and we had a great going away for her a few weeks back, and just wanted to recognize her as well. I think her and Yoni and the entire planning team have just done a phenomenal job of building what we want our system to look like, and so I wanted to make sure we gave her some credit as well. 50th anniversary on the 27th. If you can be there, please come and join us. It'll be at Oceanside Transit Center, so Hale will get some information out on that. We are having our rodeo, which we share every year between MTS and NCTD. In October, I think it's on the 25th, is that correct, Lilia? It will be at our West Yard down here off of Mission. So please come and hang out with us on that day. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you come early, we might be able to let you drive a bus around the course. So come hang out. Yeah, so Lori's not here today, so all risk bets are off. If something happens, it's cool. Come down and drive a bus wherever you want. Legal said it's good. Sorry.
Legal did not say that.
We have an absolute work window on our rail this weekend, so we will be doing a lot of track work. I always want to give those folks a shout out in our signal and maintenance away. They don't get the kudos they deserve for an entire weekend. Essentially, they come in and they're working around the clock, doing a lot of stuff to track maintenance and things like that. I know it's a little bit of an inconvenience for our team members out there and the folks that ride on the train, but we try to keep them as limited as possible. But those folks do an absolutely phenomenal job. And on a personal note, I got to give a shout out to my dad, who got inducted into the APTA Hall of Fame this weekend. So I know he's always watching. So big shout out to him. And Madam Chair, that's all I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any board members have anything to report? Board Member Joyce?
Yeah, as I was looking at the agenda this past time, I was just thinking about how when we were addressing the leadership of this this committee and this commission, we talked about revisiting how we do elections and how our governance is structured. And I just not sure we followed up with that, if we have a plan to follow up with that, but I think it is important for us to have that conversation that we had originally talked about. So I know I'm springing this out of nowhere, so but I do want to plan on having that conversation before we come up against the end of the year where we're doing it all over again without ever having addressed the original issues.
Yeah, and we can definitely do that. I would say it's the one area that the agency is not supposed to have any pull on. But we're more than happy to take a look at, if we could pull the policies on what the executive committee does with that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, and in the October executive committee, the committee will review all of the board policies and have an opportunity to make any revisions before they get adopted at the October board. So there is an opportunity for one of those board policies that talks about the nominating committee, which is, I assume, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it just
the
the general
leadership.
structure, I think, is what we all kind of questioned and had concerns about and whatever. So maybe it's a good idea for the, and one of the questions that we had was like the executive committee's doing that without input from the total board too. So I think maybe that would be something that should be flagged for everybody to have a chance to even weigh in on ahead of that meeting. So that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And yes, I do remember that being something that we wanted to talk about. And I do believe, as you mentioned, it's on the executive committee's agenda. However, I think what you're saying is for all of us to have a full discussion on it, so everyone's aware of what the process looks like. So, Mr. Donaghy, is there a way for us to have that discussion
Yeah,
at the
can we,
next board meeting?
can we pull the, any policy specific to board composition? and
Yeah, I
committee
can do that,
composition?
and would you
And
like
then
me to
them
send
out
it to the board
Yeah,
for
that'd be great.
review?
That way, everybody has a chance, just that way you don't got to thumb through all the policies. You can just look at those specifically and kind of figure out what you may want to take to the executive committee for consideration. And we just received a text that Lori is listening, so.
Perfect. And from I'll look to Misty from a process perspective, when that does get sent out to us, what is the best way for board members to share feedback for the executive committee to consider?
You can just send your comments to, sorry. You can just send your comments to Suhail directly.
Okay. And then, Mr. Donaghy, in case there is an appetite for a broader discussion with the rest of the board, because I'm hearing that that might be what the ask is, how could we go about doing that?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a way for us to put that on either as an informational item stemming from the executive committee or for discussion at a board meeting. And I know we've talked about it in the past, and there's a few things that have floated out there. I know we have a chair and a vice chair. I know we've talked at a few outlets about maybe adding in a secretary position. That's all at the discretion, I think, of the board, as long as it falls under the legal context of board composition for the state. And as long as we're within, as long as we've done that and we've gone through those policies and they're all vetted through our legal department, I mean, that's all something that we can do. It's not an issue.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, when you do send over that information, anything in that purview that you could send over with regards to information on how that board composition comes about would be helpful.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
okay, great, thank you. All right, anything else? Okay, not seeing anything. All right, any remaining public comments? We did have that one, so have we had a chance to connect with them?
Yes, we will have 2 telephonic comments.
Okay, perfect.
One person is already on standby, Ms. Diane Bedrosian. If you're able to hear me, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, Ms. Diane Bedrosian, I'm a Carlsbad resident, and I did try to comment at 2 o'clock, and that there were some problems with the system. At 2 p.m., I was at the NCTD office in Escondido because NCTD requires disabled adults like my daughter to appear in person to renew their passes every 3 years. I can understand the first time, but for renewals when nothing has changed, I have bad knees and my daughter cannot go to locations like this alone. The location is dicey. Just 1 month ago, someone was stabbed to death there. When we walked in, there was a weird guy there also. Why can we not renew online? When I inquired by email, I was told this is just how it's done. Well, perhaps things can be changed. There's absolutely no reason for people to have to walk into this place, drive all the way over here to renew something. This is a hardship for disabled people and their families. I am also a pediatrician, and I'm concerned about this for my patients. Secondly, my daughter is a student at a learning center for adults with disabilities. She takes transportation to and from the location. Normally, the transportation is fairly reliable, but on 9/10, Lyft arrived at our home earlier than the 30-minute window of their pickup time. Luckily, my daughter was ready, so she was picked up around 7:35 a.m. and brought to the Learning Center. The Learning Center does not open until 8 a.m., and NCTD has been informed repeatedly not to drop off students there before 8 a.m. with no one there to receive students. This driver did it anyway. He dropped off my daughter and another special needs student at the location unattended, with the center still closed. Not only is this an issue of some have physical disabilities, but this also leaves special needs students as sitting ducks should anyone come by who wishes them harm. That's why I'm not even mentioning the name of the place in public comment. Luckily, another transport driver was there and told my daughter and the other student that they could wait in his van until the center opened, which they did. Kudos to that driver. But what about the driver who did not follow the rules? I believe the center may have called NCTD, but I also wanted to follow up as this was very concerning to me. On 9/11 last week, I sent an email to Alicia Pete Watson, Director of Customer Experience, who I had connected with in the past when my daughter had been being driven around on Lyft for 2.5 hours after pickup, despite us not living far from the center. I received an automated reply that same day with an incident number stating, quote, "Please allow us 5 days to respond," end quote. The email also mentioned that in the future, I should submit through the online portal or call the phone number, both options of which have been unhelpful in the past. So it has been 5 business days. There has been no response to my email. Is this the way NCTD does business? Are people who are probably very well paid too busy and too important to themselves to respond to customers? Thirdly, the agenda for your meetings is not posted in a timely fashion. It was not posted by Monday morning, September 15th. Moreover, the previous month's agenda was not viewable as it was a dead link both from my phone and from a desktop. This agency is not very transparent. Please do better to serve the community. It is our taxpayer money.
Thank you. Your time is up. We do have one more speaker. We're getting her on the phone right now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shandani, for providing an update regarding representation of Coaster crew members by Teamsters 542 for collective bargaining. It actually answers a lot of the questions and concerns that I was going to express in my public comment today. Quickly, I would like to request clarification for operating rules until a CBA is reached, such as safety, training, qualifications, investigations. I humbly request that NCTD defer to CFR codes that apply, such as 49 CFR Part 243. Also, there are operating rules, or actually not operating rules, but other rules of employment that are on poster boards in the break rooms. Wondering if NCTD is following that as well. I'm really hopeful that NCTD will come to an agreement and we'll be able to ratify a new collective bargaining agreement quickly. And thank you so much for your time. I know it's a late day. Thank you so much. I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Madam Chair, we have no further speakers.
Okay, thank you. At this time, public registration to speak on remaining public communications will end. The next scheduled board meetings are the Executive Committee meeting Monday, October 13th at 11 a.m. and then the regular board meeting on October 23rd at 2 p.m. And with that, we are adjourned.